For those who have not met me, my name is Matt and I am part of the team here, and we are doing our part 2 of a mini-series during the school holidays of How to Read Your Bible. Who was here last week, out of curiosity? Who was here last week? Awesome, a decent chunk of people in the room. If you weren't, that's okay. They're connected, but it's not necessary to have heard last week's one. But essentially, last week, Ryan did a big Bible overview. So he did a big Bible overview from Genesis to Revelation, and basically some cool tips and tricks of how to know how to place yourself in the Bible when you're reading it, of like, okay, I'm here in this part of the story, so that means X, Y, and Z, or I'm here, so that means A, B, and C. It was awesome. I would highly recommend checking it out. It was really, really good. What we're going to do today is not a big picture Bible thing. We're going to learn a technique of what to do when you're actually reading a specific Bible passage. It's called Discovery Bible Study. The youth and the young adults are mini theologians now. They're all great at it. So keen to share something that's genuinely impacted my life. It's the technique that was shown to me. And honestly, I'd been at Bible college for 18 months at that point, and I still didn't know how to read the Bible, which is crazy. Just think about that. I mean, doing discipleship training, formally studying it, and I still don't know how to get anything out of my Bible in my own time. And then I go on a placement trip. It's also where I met my beautiful wife, which is awesome. But on this placement trip, I was taught this technique, and it blew my mind. And I actually was able to get something from the text on my own without an expert having to tell me for the first time in my life. Cannot stress how much I'm obsessed with it. Cards on the table. I hope we adopt it as a church. I really, really believe in it. So I'm going to teach it to you guys today. But before we do that, we're going to have some fun. We're going to play a game that I like to call Quotes Without Context. The youth know what this game is. It's a lot of fun. And as incentive, I have prizes. I know it's all to play for today. High stakes. So pretty much how it's going to work. Actually, I realize I might grab a microphone. Can I get Judy? Would you mind running around being a microphone person for us, or somebody else? I don't mind. Great, thank you, Jenny. In a moment, I'm going to pull up a quote that has absolutely no context. And then you, or if you would like to win the acclaimed prize of a Caramella Koala or a Freddo Frog, will have a go at guessing what it means. By the way, you won't possibly be able to work out what it means, and that's the whole point of the game. But it's fun to see people have a go, and there's a moral that we'll talk about at the end of this game. We're going to bring up the first one. The quote says, "San is Spanish for saint. It's not even a real word." San is Spanish for saint. It's not even a real word. The more fun you have with it, the better. The more ridiculous the story, the more fun we have. I might actually hand these off, Jay. Would you mind being the snack deliverer? All right, someone to have a go. Give us an example. Youth team, someone give an example. Where's Shana when I need her? She's great at this. She has the most crazy examples. So I want you to have a go at guessing what you think this means. Great, we have someone over here. Judy's on the far table. Someone to have a go at what this means. A Spanish saint. That's a really great guess. That deserves a round of applause. Give him one of those. Oh, I would love... That was awesome. Can you say that again into the microphone so those online and stuff can hear? I feel like that's actually something Trump would have said. It does sound like something that Trump would have said. San is Spanish for saints, not even a real word. I'll give one more guess, and you can grab a lolly for that as well. One more guess. Microphone not working. How about you just call it out and I will say it into this microphone so those at home can hear. Who would like to have one more guess? It's fine. All good. Anyone having a guess?
Is it a quote from a movie?
Is it a quote from a movie? Ooh, that's also another good guess. You can get a lolly as well. All right, I'll tell you. It is not a quote from a movie. This happened in real life with me. I was in California on a holiday. And there's this guy that was taking me around, and he had the opportunity to be on TV when he was 8 years old, and he's now 20. And you'd think this is the type of story that you would have got over, but he hadn't gotten over. And then when he finally got to be on TV, they asked him what his name was, and his name is Samuel, or Sam for short. And when they put up his name for the story that he was involved in, they spelt it S-A-N for San. And he was so mad that they misspelt his name. And he's venting to me and his family about it 12 years after the fact. And we're all laughing at how salty he still is. And he's like, San is Spanish for saint. It's not even a real word. Like, how could you possibly get my name mixed up? Crazy. If you were there in the moment, it's actually comedic. You laugh. But no one here is laughing because you don't know the context. Like, I don't actually expect you to laugh because you don't know. You don't know the context. Round 2, let's go. What we got? Quote number 2. It goes just like a billy goat. Just point in the direction you want to go and squirt. I have used this one at youth group, so I might get the youth kids to not guess just yet.
Okay. Oh, not you.
Do you know, Robert? If you don't know, I'd rather not say just yet.
I know.
All right, we'll wait for you. I think I saw a hand or something over here.
Where is it?
You can guess again. Hey, you've cracked the case. You can get more chocolates. That's fine.
Chocolate, water pistol.
Water pistol. That's a good guess. Actually, a lot of people guessed that one. Good guess. Good guess. Who else?
Is it a blind goat excreting milk?
A blind goat excreting milk. That's a great guess. I don't know what to say to that. I'm going to go one more guess, one more. You guys are really good at this game. You're good at having a go, at least. All right, anyone else? It's pretty much a free chocolate. You can say anything you want, and Jay's going to give you one, so.
Is it a billy cart?
Is it a billy cart? Oh, that is actually a really good guess. It's not a billy cart, but that still deserves a chocolate. All right, this is another thing that happened to me. Someone said it to me. Family friend of ours who loves his Jeep Wrangler. Loves his Jeep Wrangler, and he always takes them off-road, always writes them off, and he buys another one. This is his 4th Jeep Wrangler that he owns, and he's a country bumpkin. You know how like real like farm country boys, they say like metaphors and analogies that don't really make sense, but if you're in the room, you kind of know what they're saying? That's what's going on. He's describing his Jeep Wrangler off-road. He says it goes just like a billy goat, just point in the direction you want to go and squirt. As soon as he said that, I wrote that down because I knew I would use it in a quotes without context game. No one's going to possibly guess a Jeep Wrangler. Why? Because you don't have the context. Last one, please bring it up for me. The hour between dog and wolf. Some people think they might know this one.
It's like a puppy going crazy during witching hour. I'm very
Good guess. That deserves a lolly. If it is right or wrong, I just won't say till the end. But I love the guess.
We've got a guess here.
Childhood game, what's the time, Mr. Wolf?
Childhood game. It does sound like a variation of What's the Time, Mr. Wolf. Also gets a lolly. You guys have just worked out you get lollies if you say something. And you know what? I respect that. All right, last one. Have a go. Oh, sorry. We'll do 2 more then.
Between 11 and 12 p.m.
Between 11 and 12 p.m. Oh, getting... No, I'm not going to say anything. But good guess.
Is it related to when you're up way past your bedtime and instead of being a nice, gentle dog, you're now a cranky pants wolf?
Also a good guess. All right, so this one, if people worked this one out, I'd have been so impressed. So this is actually a saying in French. It translates loosely to the hour between dog and wolf. I don't speak French, so I'm not going to have a go. But more direct translation is more like between dog and wolf. There's no hour in it. But what it's talking about is the late sun as it's coming down and it's getting darker and darker. And there's about the last hour of the day where you can't tell if that's a wild dog, like a stray dog, or a wolf coming at you. And so the hour between dog and wolf is an expression to say you are hyper alert. It actually has nothing to do with dogs and wolves. It's the hour between dog and wolf is like a mindset or a mode that you're in to say that you are hyper alert and ready like for anything dangerous to come your way. Again, no one can work that out because no one has the context. So my question for you guys is this. If we don't know the context and can't possibly work out what these quotes mean, why would we assume any different when we read the Bible? Why would we assume any different? And everything I just told you is a 21st century example. That's all in our century. It's all like white Western Christianity, that Judeo-Christian world, that mindset. But when we read the Bible, it's 2,000 years old in languages that don't exist anymore, for culture that's not our own. There's no technology of iPhones and internet and memes and social media and all these things. And we expect a skim read and then we interpret it straight away and then we move it on. And we expect to draw something accurate out of it. We expect to encounter God with one skim, with no background information, and expect to encounter something, or bash ourselves for not encountering God. Does that make sense? Are you following with me so far? And I just want to say, I want to publicly apologize. Bible teaching, ironically, I think is done so poorly in the Western church. Sadly, it's been, what's that word for? It's been delegated to professionals like me who come up here and tell you how to read it, tell you how to think, but it actually makes people lazy and it actually makes people unable to learn from it. But anyone can do this. Like anyone, and I mean anyone, if you have the intellectual capability to read, like if you are past a year 6 reading level, you can get as much out of the Bible as someone like me. I wholeheartedly believe that. I have these year 7 kids that are asking theological questions now that would blow your mind because they've just stuck to the process and they've carried along with it. But what's really sad is that it's an unspoken thing in churches where we feel like when we get to a certain age, we can't ask for help anymore. And it hits this point where it's like, I've been a Christian for 20 years now, I can't ask for help. I just have to pretend that I know how I do it, but really I have no idea what's going on. I just want to just kill that stigma. It is okay if you don't know how to. What is not okay is then choosing to stay there. Does that make sense? It's okay to start at level 0. For those who have seen Kung Fu Panda, he fails terribly and his master or his coach says there is now a level 0. It's okay to start there. It's okay to start at the bottom, but we want to progress upwards. And this technique is so good. It's so good. I cannot stress it enough. All right, I'll stop preaching at you. This is how it's going to work. I'm going to explain how it works, and then I'm going to show it to you on a piece of text that's not the Bible. Very important. Do you know why? Because as soon as I pull up a real Bible verse, you're going to think you already know how to do it. And so I want to show you how to do it on a piece of text that has nothing to do with the Bible, and therefore no positive or negative connotations will come with it, and then we'll do it with an actual Bible text. But I need to stress this as well. This takes about an hour to do, and I tried to do the full thing at Austral and it didn't go super well. So what I want to do is teach you the method and the technique, and your homework from me is to go and do it in your own time. I actually hope your next life group meeting is when you catch up to read the word, you use the method. I've got them like they're all on your tables. You have it in front of you. You have this sheet. If you don't take it home, that's on you. But you've got the sheet with all the steps, and you've been here today. So you're going to leave here a theologian. I'm sure of it. No, that's a joke, but you'll have some steps. You'll have some steps to move in the right direction. So we've got this slide here. This is very important. So we want to gather information, interpret the information, and then apply the information. And so where we go wrong is that we see a text just like those quotes I showed you, and we interpret straight away. And everyone interpreted incorrectly, and that was the point. No one possibly could have known what it was because you didn't know the background information. So the key part of Discovery Bible Study is we want to sit and gather as much information and background knowledge on what's going on before we do anything else. And then we want to try and interpret what's going on and go, well, because I know all of these things, it's actually pretty easy to draw out truth. So I don't know if you actually thought about this. This is not in my notes, but I want to say this. When every single person wrote something that is now in the Bible, they weren't trying to confuse anyone. They went to so much effort to make the gospel known to everyone around them. They tried to make it as simple and as easy as possible. The problem is they did it in a context we don't live in anymore. But the Bible was never meant to be confusing. It was actually always written very, 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 very simply. And so if we can understand the context that they knew, we will feel like we have a PhD. Because actually it was never meant to be for super, super smart people. It was for the lay people. It was for normal people. And so the hard, difficult work is really only in the context. And once you know, for example, when you knew the hour between dog and wolf, if I use that one, when you knew that was a French expression talking about being hyper alert, everyone in this room knew what that meant. It's actually not hard. It wasn't meant to confuse anybody, but it's only confusing if we don't know. I digress. That's what we're trying to do. And the last bit, and this is the one that seems to stump a lot of people, which I always find crazy, but that's just the world we're in, is that if you don't apply what you learnt in the Bible study, your Bible study isn't complete. So I'll say that again. If you don't apply what you did in the Bible study isn't complete. There's literally a verse in James 1:22. I don't have a slide for it. I'll just tell you. It says, "Do not deceive yourselves and only read the word. Do what it says." So there has to be a part that when you come and hear, by the way, any sermon falls in the same category, but any Bible study, at the end, there has to be, okay, now that I learnt this, I'm going to X, Y, Z. I'll give you a cheat from the start. If you go away and do a DBS after this church service, you will have fulfilled the apply requirement. I will leave that between you and God. All right. I want to show you these 3 phases. So this is gather, interpret, apply, but there's 7 steps to it. So I'm going to skim this. But basically what ends up happening is you read the passage 3 times. You read it 3 times through. And as you go, you want to write down any questions that you have. We're not answering anything yet. You just jot them down. Or if there's like some crazy mind-blowing fact that you just saw and you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought that was there, you write that down too. You read it once, you read it twice, you read it 3 times. The next bit is something called tell, check, tell, which I'll be honest, we've gone a bit lazy with it, youth, but that's really for time restraints. It's not because I don't want to do it. Tell, check, tell is the idea of basically you have a go at telling it off by heart. So we go, yeah, I've read it, I know it now. And I go, great, tell it off by heart. And we go, and we can't say it. Like our minds are designed to skim information that we actually haven't learnt yet. And there's something crazy. As soon as you say, okay, do it off by heart, someone goes, oh, and they just get stuck. And it's not about getting it perfect, but it's about turning your mind on because you are wired to skim information. And so you have a go at reading it off by heart twice, like 2 people in your group do it, and you feed them lines to help them, and you'll be shocked what you discover. You're like, it says that? It's like, I've read this 100 times and I've never seen that. If I got $1 for every time someone said that, I have at least $7. Lots of dollars from that. Great, that's tell, check, tell. And point 3 is everyone shares their questions and observations of like, I never knew it said that, or what does donkey mean, or what does whatever. You share all that. And then answer 4, or point 4, is where you then answer those questions if you feel like you have an answer to them. Or this is when you bust out Google. You live in the greatest era ever for getting answers for things. And ironically, we'll do it to know who's who in the zoo of Hollywood or social media or any other things. But when it comes to Bible knowledge, we don't use Google. It's nuts. It's crazy to me. EnduringWord.com, cannot plug it enough. If you know what passage I'm preaching on Sunday and you go into Enduring Word, you will find 50% of my sermon notes. It is so good. Anyone can read it. It's free. I cannot recommend it enough. And that's in the gather stage. And then we switch to interpret. And this is really, really important. We can get the next slide up for me. And this might take some time for people to understand, and that's okay. Because the truth is, most of you probably haven't been taught that you should do this. If I can just be real, if I can actually step back for a second, All the stuff we're doing, anyone who gets up here is doing this work for you before they come and speak. So you've actually been experiencing it anytime you've ever heard a sermon, but you weren't the one necessarily doing it, if that makes sense. But this is really, really important. And it's this idea of, in light of all the background information we've just got, the person who wrote this, when they wrote it, what did they want their audience to know? That is the most important question that you can ask when coming to the Bible. Feel free to write that down. What did the author want their original audience to know when they wrote this? We're going to do this in a second, and this will make more sense, but that is so important. And point 6 is, based on that answer, what might that mean for us/me today? So most people jump from skimming the Bible one time straight to step 6. They'll skim memory, so they'll go on the Bible app, they'll skim verse of the day, and they go zoom, straight to 6, and go, what does this mean for me? And we skip all this stuff, and we have no idea what's going on. And it's just like that, the hour between dog and wolf. You know what? We read it and we go, you know what? Jesus is telling me I should buy a dog. But seriously, we do that. We go, you know what? The hour between dog and wolf, it's saying the hour that if I wait too long, the dog will turn into a wolf, and I don't want a wolf, so I got to buy a dog right now. And that sounds funny, but we do that all the time. And so we want to stay in this, and we want to answer these questions. So what does it mean for us/me today? And the last bit, apply, which is based off everything that we've learned. What are we going to do in the next 7 days? That's a personal one. There's no right or wrong way to do that. But it's going, okay, I don't want to read the word and so deceive myself, like what Apostle James was talking about. I want to do what it says. So I've learned something, and I'm going to do this. Whatever that looks like for you is all good. Making sense, clear as mud. I'm going to show you an example. So if you can bring up this next quote for me, I'm going to tell you nothing. I'm just going to read it for you. But we're going to go down these steps that you've got in front of you. And I'm going to show you what a DBS would look like for a quote that's not in the Bible. Because I want any baggage attached. So I know that no one's read this in this room. You may have heard this story, but you haven't read this story. I'll just read it out. It says, it was 7:45 p.m. and Cody arrived. Very quickly, the rest of my family started to spill into the lounge room too, everyone except Jono. This was super unlike him, as he's usually very punctual. I could see that they were finishing their warm-up and the match was about to start, so I got out my phone and messaged Jono, the GOAT is on, where are you? Moments later, he burst in the door and said, did I miss anything? So this is a DBS. We would read that 3 times through. And as we're reading, we're writing down questions we might have of like, what does GOAT mean? Or like, who's telling this story? What's the relationship between Jono and Cody and the family? Like, whose lounge room is this? You're writing down all these questions. You read it once, you read it twice, you read it 3 times. Then you have a go at doing the tell, check, tell, where you try and say as much of it as you can, and someone's telling you if you're getting it correct. And someone will be like, oh, you missed the line where it says he's usually very punctual. And you're like, oh my goodness, I don't even remember it saying that. I have no recollection of it saying he's very punctual. That's cool. I'll write that down. And then we go through that, we'll ask all these questions and we'll try and research and answer them. So for the sake of it, I'm going to show you. If you can pull up the next slide, these are some questions that you might have had. So I mentioned a few, but here are some. So who's telling this story? What was happening in the lounge room? Who is Cody, Jono family? All these different ones. Why was Jono late is the last question. I'm going to rapid fire go through these things. And then we're going to read the story again. And the story is very straightforward if you know the answer to these questions. Who is telling this story? Me. This is my life. There's actually a transcript of when I told this story in a sermon. So I've used this story here, but not at this church, which is why I used it. Who's telling this story? Matt Ryan is. What was happening in the lounge room? The 2017 Men's Australian Open Final. That's what's happening in the lounge room. Who is Cody, Jono family? Cody's a really good friend of mine. Jono is my younger brother, and the family is referring to the Ryan family. That's what's going on. So what is the relationship between all the people there? Me, Jono, and Cody, all massive Roger Federer fans. Huge Roger Federer fans. Rest of the family, they like Roger too, but they're not as obsessed as we were. What's about to start? The Australian Open Final at 8 p.m. When it says 7:45, it's getting pretty close. Who is they and what were they warming up for? They is referring to Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal, which makes sense because we're all big Roger Federer fans. So who's playing? Federer and Nadal, and they are warming up on Rod Laver Arena, and the match is about to start. Now, this is the crucial one. What is the GOAT referring to? So, if you did not know, and I'm assuming some people in the room might not know this, the GOAT is an acronym for the greatest of all time. But if you don't know that, you think I'm talking about a farm animal. But as soon as you know that, it's actually really, really obvious. And so for shorthand, and because I think Federer is the best, I say the GOAT is on Where Are You? I'm just trying to type quickly. Really simple. And then why was Jono late? Jono was late because he had a shift and he got snacks afterwards. Simple as that. So we're going to read that story again, if you can pull that slide up. It's actually not very complex. Let's read it again. It says, it was 7:45 and Cody arrived. Very quickly, the rest of my family started to spill into the lounge room too, everyone except Jono. This was super unlike him, as he's usually very punctual. I could see that they were finishing their warm-up and the match was about to start. So I got up my phone and messaged Jono, the GOAT is on, where are you? Moments later, he burst through the door and said, did I miss anything? Makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it? Really, really, really simple. And obviously you can't Google this because this story is not going to be on Google. But if this is a Bible passage, you can Google this stuff. You can pull out a commentary, either hard copy if you're old school, nothing wrong with that. Or like next gen, someone like me, I'm just going to Google it, I'll get an answer. Honestly, Bible questions, I would say 70% of them I get an answer within about 5 seconds. I have to do a bit of work to make sure it's not garbage because anyone can post something. But if you Google it and you find this source, this source, this source, and this source all say pretty much the same thing, it's probably true. If someone says something really random and then everyone else says something else, probably ignore the really random one. Or if you find that they all seem really random, it probably means that no one can actually agree on what it means. And it's representing different schools of thought. Other than that, it's pretty simple. So based off that, what might this story have mean, like in this interpret thing? So what did the author want their original audience to learn when they wrote this? That's really easy, because I am the author. I can tell you exactly what I meant. When I said that text of the GOAT is on Where Are You? I'm actually not asking really a question. I'm saying hurry up. I'm saying you're going to miss it. I've posed it as a question, but I'm just saying hurry up. Like, you're going to miss the game. We want you here. What's going on? And so based off this, what might that mean for us or me today? Truth is, it's not a Bible reference. You don't have to apply or do anything from it. But if we're going through this as an example, you might draw lots of different truths from it. There's lots of things you could draw. One of them might be something as simple as being late for things means you miss out. That's a simple wisdom type truth. Or it might be if you value something, don't overbook. Don't do too many things and double stack like what Jono did. Could be something as simple as tennis is really fun to watch with a big group of people. That's a truth you could draw out. But a truth that you couldn't draw out, or at least it wouldn't be accurate, would be, I should go buy a goat. And you go, yeah, it said goat in it. And so I should go buy a goat. Or another one might be, the goat is on. That's referring to the school carnival where there's a contest for the biggest goat, like a goat breeding contest. I should get into goat breeding. You got it from the text, but it's actually not what I mean when I said that. That makes sense. And so we're looking at, okay, what did that person mean when they said it? And just as a side note, you've all been, and by you all I mean me as well, we've all been screwed by high school English in this. I apologize to all the high school English teachers. I wanted to become one for a long time, and I started studying it and God called me to something else. So I feel like I have the right to rip into them because I identify as one in some ways. I was taught in school that if you can argue it in the text, you can believe it. That is the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. You are trying to impose as little of yourself onto the text as possible. You want to be like, I don't care what I think. What did Apostle Paul mean when he said that? Or what did Matthew mean when he said that? Or what did David mean when he said that? Or what did whoever mean? It's not, well, I think it means this. And it's like, well, that's great if what you think is what they thought. But if you think is not what they thought, we don't want to think it. Does that make sense? Cool, clear as mud. And then we will go on to the application, and you will go, based off this, I'm going to sign up to play tennis in the next 7 days. Or it might be, actually, my schedule is really overbooked. I'm going to reschedule my schedule to be more free so I don't miss special things in the next 7 days. Whatever that looks like for you, that's what it would be. Awesome. Now I'm going to rapid fire show you what it would look like to do with the Bible passage. Making sense? Very cool. You've got the Bible passages on your tables. It's in Luke 5:33 to 39. So if everyone online, it's Luke 33 to 39. We're in the NLT if you want to follow along, which is very, very cool. So I'm going to do, for the sake of time, because we've only got about 10, 15 minutes left, and a DBS in full takes about an hour to do. So I'm not going to do a full one. We're just going to skim and show you. And then again, that you would hopefully do it in your own time. But we're going to skim and I'll read through it just once. And I said not to do that, but I'm just going to read the passage once. And we won't tell, check, tell it, because that's where all the time goes. And then we'll move on. Does that make sense? Very cool. Okay, this is Luke 5:33 to 39 in the NLT. And it says, one day some people said to Jesus, John the Baptist's disciples fast and pray regularly, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees. Why are your disciples always eating and drinking? Jesus responded, do wedding guests fast while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and they will fast. Then Jesus gave them this illustration. No one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and uses it to patch an old garment. For the new garment would be ruined, and the new patch wouldn't even match the old garment. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the new wine would burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine must be stored in new wineskins, but no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine. Old is just fine. Awesome. If we had the time, we'd read it again, and you write down any questions and observations you've got. We do it again. We then do tell, check, tell. But for the sake of it, we're just going to skip this step. We'll fast forward this step. I'm going to get you guys to do on your tables just for 3 minutes. So you've got pens and stuff there, and you've got the pieces of paper. So my pieces of paper, I'm specifically talking about this one, the one that actually has it on it, with some example questions and observations. And just for 3 minutes, I want you guys to brainstorm any questions you have or any observations you made and just whack them down. Make sense? I'll give you 3 minutes to do that. If you've got any questions, come find me. Other than that, go for it. Okay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. How did you guys do with that? Did you okay? Write some questions out. Raise your hand if your table wrote out at least one question. Fantastic. The more the better. No such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is one we don't write down. We want to write out as many as we can. Awesome. What we're going to do is I'm going to try and rapid fire answer some of these. Normally, this is what you would do in your groups. So someone might have an answer to the question. And if someone does, this is where they will go, actually, I do know this one. But if people don't know, if everyone's like, I don't know what a wineskin is, you go to your best friend Google and he will tell you some amazing things, or enduring word or whatever commentary you like. So I'm going to rapid fire go through what some of the questions might have been. And I actually think by the end, the message starts to make more and more sense, more or less on its own. Still a skill to it, still an art to it, still takes time, but it's actually not super, super intense the more that we learn. So I'm just going to jump in and do it. So what is a wineskin? A wineskin is where wine is stored. Very simple. I will talk more to that on another question, but they didn't have barrels or glasses like we do. They stored it in these leather skins. Talk more to that soon. What is fasting? This is a good thing that I think to know. Fasting is praying with your body, but you pray with your body by not eating. And essentially saying, God, I'm relying on you to empower me and to give me energy and sustenance more than food. And it's something that was really popular, particularly back then, but something that like I try and do now. It's really good. I feel so close to God when I do it. That's what fasting is. It's abstaining from food to pray more with God, pretty much. Next one, in Jesus' day, what did it mean to be a good disciple? We could talk for hours on this, but I've given a very short answer. But we're so focused on high levels of discipline and like righteous acts and deeds, but also following the commands of the Torah or the Bible for them, which one of them was fasting. So that's why, actually I'll get to that soon, but that's why they're getting so irked up about it, because it's a practice that they're not seeing Jesus' disciples doing, and they're curious about it. They're like, this is valuable, but I don't see anyone doing it that follows you. One, and this is a really important one, what did the people of Jesus' day believe fasting was for? This is a great question. Do you know what they believe fasting was for? They believe fasting, or one of the primary, if not the primary reasons to fast, was they were fasting for the Messiah to come. But he's talking to the Messiah. He's asking the Messiah that question. Which gets on to our next one, which is why does Jesus respond to a fasting question with a wedding celebration reference? Because he's saying in the same way that you don't have to wait for a groom anymore when you're at the wedding, you just get to celebrate with them now. It's like all your fasting is paid off. I'm here. He's actually telling him he is the Messiah. That's what that question means. In the same way that when I said the goat is on where are you, it's phrased as a question, but it's actually a statement, and I was saying hurry up. Jesus is doing the exact same thing. He's asking a question to be like, hey, have you worked this out? It's me. I'm the guy. I'm the one you're waiting for. Cracks me up every time I read that. Next one. Where's the next question, actually? Still on that same one. Why does wine have to be stored in new wineskins? Great question. So, wineskins made out of leather. You pour the wine in, it fills up and up and up and up and up. And then you go to the party, the event, whatever, and you pour the wine into the glasses. People have a great time and it finishes. If you try and pour more wine into that skin, it's lost its integrity now, and it'll stretch and burst. So wineskins are actually one-time uses. One-time uses. Or they have a purpose, and once they've fulfilled that purpose, they have no more use. I wonder what Jesus might be saying that has a one-time or a limited purpose that has fulfilled its use. All right, I'm just going to cut to the chase. He's talking about the old covenant. So the law where you have to earn and achieve and do this and make right with God and like, God, I'm sorry I sinned for this one thing, but I'll do 700 other things. I'll kill 68 goats. This time I actually mean a goat, not greatest of all time. Like kill 68 goats and do all these other things and maybe then God will love me. That's what the old covenant was like. But the new covenant is where Jesus fulfills all those things so we don't have to. That's what he's talking about here. Awesome. So what was people trying to get at to understand the analogy of the garment and the wineskins? I think I've skipped a question. That's okay, I'll keep going. What was Jesus trying to get at to understand when he gives the people the garment and the wineskins? Exactly what I just said. He's trying to say, you're asking a question about fasting, and so I'll answer that fasting question. You're saying, why don't your disciples fast? They don't fast because the only reason to fast is for me to show up, and I'm already here. So he answers that question. But he moves on because he's like, you're asking what you believe to be a good question, but I'm going to teach you something that you haven't even considered yet. It's actually far beyond your level of thinking. And you think fasting to get me is a good thing, and that's great, but I'm already here. So I want to teach you something even bigger, which is to say the system that fasting lives in, where you have to earn and like make good on your mistakes and get even or get back to being good with God. He's saying, I'm about to get rid of that. That's what Jesus is saying. He asked the fasting question, but he moves away from that because he's like, I've actually got something better to tell you. And so he uses two examples with the garment and with the wineskin to make essentially the same point. And so at the end when it says, why does this story end with, but no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new... Sorry, but why does no one who drinks the old wine seem to want the new wine when it says the old wine is just fine? Thanks, they say. That made no sense, but I knew what I meant when I said it. Why does it end how it ends, what I'm trying to say? He's saying that even though he's about to abolish this system, he's going to fulfill all the requirements of the law so we can receive grace for free, there are people among us that like earning. myself included. There are people among us that like earning. Do you know why? Because if it's something we can earn, it means it's something we can beat people at. And it means that we can boast about it and be prideful about it. And he's saying, I've brought this system where it's all free, but everyone's equal. But those who are crushing it, aka the people asking Jesus this question, don't like the fact that everyone's been made equal. They like the old wine. Because in the old system, they were winning. They were the best. They were the cream of the crop. All of it fed to them, all the benefits. But now he's saying everyone gets the benefits. No thanks, the old is just fine. So when it's said, he's saying he's giving them a choice of just because this system is coming, this new covenant, people still have the right to choose. You should definitely choose the new wine. It's way better. But you actually still have the right to choose which one that you would like. All right, in light of all of this information, what did the author want the original audience to learn when he wrote this? Would anyone like to have any guesses? There's not one right or wrong answer. But I'll be curious to know if anyone has any takeaways, because this is the part where I learn heaps as well. Someone will share something and I'm like, I've never considered that. If you do, we'll run a microphone to you. If you don't, that's okay, and I can share some of my own thoughts. But based on everything we've learned, does someone have any ideas of oh my goodness, I think it's talking about blah, blah, blah? Anyone be brave enough? And if not, that's okay. Yes, Bethany, let's go. Bethany's right there. Oh, gotcha.
I was looking at the two stories about the wine and then about the garment, and I was like, they kind of contradict. And then Matt said something that changed everything. It was like, the only connection between the two stories that I can make is that God's trying to say, you don't want to, there are people, like Matt said, who like the old way. But they also are trying to figure out what Jesus is teaching. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out a way that they can connect Jesus' teaching to the old way. Mm-hmm. Like they're trying to fix the old garment with the new dress. So...
That's awesome. That's great. Give a round of applause. That was really good. You can see Robert over there. Look at these youth kids just leading the way. Love it. These DBS experts.
Well, I guess when I read this, I'm sitting there stumped because both examples Jesus gave were problems that don't exist. Because no one repairs an old dress with a new one, and no one uses old wineskins. So it's like, yeah, rain falls from the sky. So what? And so it's the point of, what I got out of it was Jesus is sort of saying, I guess, you're talking about a problem that no longer exists, right? You're making problems that don't exist.
That's good, man. Awesome. Give a round of applause. Awesome. Anybody else? Yeah, give it, Trevor.
I was thinking that you need to put on a new garment, which is we're told in other verses in the Bible. So a wineskin that is being used up once is now replaced by a new wineskin. So it's a new garment you put on.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Also, a round of applause. Can't just clap everybody else. Maybe time for one more or two if we really want. I saw another hand. We can do two.
Well, Jesus is trying to point out in these stories, they're like, well, why would you patch an old garment with something new? Or because they're trying to use the old way, but with something new, which is kind of weird. And they're like, Jesus is trying to say, well, why are you trying to do that? Here are some other ways that you're literally doing the same thing, but that's incredibly weird. Why are you doing that?
Yeah. That's good. Good stuff. I think I saw, is it Vivica? Do you have a hand? Do one last one. You guys are very good at this, can I say? I'm very impressed with the answers.
A very simple epiphany for me. Jesus is the new garment.
That's good. That's great. Fantastic. You guys are so good at this. Awesome. I was only going to add to that. Actually, you guys pretty much said it all. But no, I will say it. I wrote it down, so I feel like I should say it. So as part of what Jesus was saying, he's like, I came to earth to give you this new wine. But here's the catch. It's not compatible with the old system. So I'll paraphrase. Now I'm kind of getting into the next point. But this idea of like, that classic, I think it's Einstein who said it, of like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing but expecting a different result. Exact same idea. Is that we want these breakthroughs, we want this new wine. And Jesus is like, I have it for you, but the new wine can't go into the way you've always done it. And so actually, if you want new life and breakthrough and transformation and things that God wants to give you, you actually have to be prepared to do something new. You have to be prepared to do something different. Very cool. What does that mean for us? Essentially, I just said I jumped the gun a bit there, but this idea of God wants to do new and amazing things. Like I think of other verses of like, behold, now I do a new thing, the famous one that's in Isaiah. And it's like Jesus saying, I'm doing new things in your life. Like that new job or that new relationship or that new season you're in. But actually, if you do all the same things that you did in the current season, the wineskin will burst. The garment will tear. It actually won't work. And it's crazy. It actually gets worse. Have you ever had that? Where there'll be a season where God's doing something in your life, but then actually your life gets worse? Have you had that? That happened to me like 100 times, where God's doing something new and amazing, but my life is actually getting worse. And not in like a righteous, suffering servant way. I mean, just straight up, my life is getting worse. This story actually answers that. It's because I'm letting Jesus do something new in my old wineskin. And so the wineskin bursts. Or I'm letting him do something new in my old garment, and then it tears. Making sense? Convicting stuff. Good stuff, though. So in terms of apply, I've got some apply things for us. Well, what might we do in the next 7 days? Did I make a slide for this? Yes, I did. That was really smart. All right. Some questions for you guys. What might an old wineskin in your life be? Sometimes just knowing something is really helpful. You're going, okay, what's something that's outgrown itself for me? And one might be, and what might therefore the new wineskin be? Or the new wine be? And then lastly, what might it look like to embrace it, to have the new wine? What practically does that mean? Cool things to think about. Your homework is to do something about that in the next 7 days. And maybe, who knows, maybe the new wineskin is a new approach to reading the Bible. Who knows? But I'll tell you why I actually picked this one, why I picked this passage, is because I felt God give this to me for our church. As in, we just got a new name. We just got a new identity. We're not Campbelltown Church Christ anymore. Our old wineskin won't work anymore. God actually wants to give us new wine. Every time there's a name change in the Bible, new wine comes with it. New wine comes with it. New identity, new purpose, new blessing, new things. It's just more awesome. But there has to be a change. What does that look like for us? That is for us to discover on the way, and I can't wait for it. What does it look like for us, and what are we going to do in the next 7 days based off what we just read? Other than that, that is all that I have for you guys. So thank you very much. Give yourselves a round of applause.